Hi folks, with the release of the new Sony LAEA-5 adapter for the Sony E-mount, to be able to use the A-mount lenses, I wanted to talk about portrait focal length, okay? So when we talk about portrait focal length, we try to talk about anything between 80, 85, up to 135 or 150 or even 200 millimeter, right? So I have taken a bunch of my lenses and I will do some test comparison between them. Those lenses are from the Minolta legacy system, so the A-mount system of Minolta, and thanks to the LAEA-5 adapter, you will be able to have the AF system of your camera with these lenses. So that's pretty neat, right? So in the roundup, I have first of all the zoom. So as a zoom, I have a classic one for portraiture, 70 to 210 is this one, 70 to 210. This one is an f4 lens, so it's pretty light. The same here. You got a minimum distance of 1.1 meter. And is considered kind of a macro when you are at 210. So 70 to 200 in the portraiture photography or even in landscape photography is a convenient and a pretty classic focal length, right? The thing is that this lens, what I like about this lens is obviously the fact that it's light, but nonetheless, this is the fact that this lens is pretty sharp actually. So I like it very much. I'm using this lens on the A99 Mark II, that is the sensor of the A7R Mark II and A7R Mark III of 42 megapixel, and the results are just gorgeous. The out of focus results is pretty cool actually. I mean that is really well rendered, and the sharpness of anything is great. Your subject is good. Continuing with the zoom, we have here something that could be considered a standard zoom. Okay, that is a 28 to, I don't know if you can read that, a 28 to 135. This one is not a constant aperture. Is starting at f4 and is going up to f4.5, which actually is not so much of a difference, right? So this one has a filter thread of 72 millimeter, and all those ones they have a filter thread of 55. All of them. So that's interesting. This one is 72. It has absolutely no hood, and that is normal. It is like that. When at 28, you have the macro position. So I have tested this lens the same at 100 and 135. I have been a bit deceived by the result wide open at 135. At 135 wide open, this lens is bringing me like a kind of a veil. So that is something that I don't understand if it is my copy of the lens that is not good, or if it is the general rendering for this lens wide open. Once it is at 4.5, actually, that is what I have noticed. At 135, it's very sharp, very sharp. So I don't understand what's going on here at f4. Do I have more zoom? Yeah, I have a zoom here. This one I think is not very well known. Is a 35 to 105. So this one is starting at f3.5 and is ending at 4.5. So I like this lens very much. The results are very crisp and sharp. Okay, that is cool. The real bummer of this lens is the minimum focus distance, that is 1 meter 50, 1.5 meters. So that's yeah, that's not so close. That's far from close. As a matter of fact, that's far from close. But the rendering and the result is very crisp, and the out of focus zone is very, very interesting too. So that is cool. Now I have two primes, starting with a macro lens, 100 macro lens. So the macro lens, the problem of all the macro lens is the problem of all the macro lens. They are very slow in autofocus, but that is by design of what is a macro lens. So by design of a macro lens, you have an AF that is pretty slow. That is expected, no? So better to use it in manual way. The thing is, this thing is certainly the sharpest of all the lens that I have. Is very, very sharp, and you will see that in the result of the images. But something that is crazily surprising is this. This guy here is 100 2.8, okay, with AF, and it's very, very sharp, but it's very, very fast in AF. That is very surprising. That has surprised me the most is the combination between sharpness and AF acquisition, and that is pretty awesome and pretty impressive, I have to tell you. The thing is that even in MF, in manual focus, I like it because the ring is damp enough so that you can manual focus at your wheel, so the way you want it. So I like it very much. I have to say that probably this lens would be the most interesting for if we compare with an equivalent, with any of the equivalents that are available for the A-mount system. So the A-mount lenses in full frame 135, because obviously this lens is pretty old now. So you can find this, I guess, for €200 or $200. I don't know exactly. And yeah, I can tell you that it's a good lens. The design is interesting for the hood. You can see that it's sliding, and you got your hood that is done. That is very funny. But the result of this lens is very, very impressive. For something of 200 to less than 300, it's very cool. So you will see the result of the comparison of all of them. But I can already tell you what is happening here. Obviously, we got the best sharpness with the macro lens. Thing is that with the macro lens, you know what is difficult is to be in focus, right? So very, very sharp, but very, very difficult to use. Okay. You got this one, the 135 2.8. Very, very sharp, very, very fast for AF acquisition, focus acquisition, and I just love it. I just love it. You see how it is compact for 135. That is very, very cool because it's super compact. It is even less than the 100 macro, so that's very, very cool. Then we have, for me, I think that I could put them equally, but the fact that this thing is 100 meter and a half, and this one is only 100 meter, so I will put first the 70 to 210 f4 for his sharpness, of course, for his rendering in the out of focus zone. Okay. Then we have, for me, this one, the 35-105. I mean, across the whole range of the zoom, this lens is pretty impressive in terms of rendering, sharpness, and overall rendering. I mean, it's delighting to see the result of what you get with this thing. And in the last one, of course, I will put the 28 to 135. This is interesting because this is curious. More than interesting, this is curious And before saying this, I could say also that this one is also 1.5 meters as a minimum focus distance, which is a lot. But this is curious because this lens is claimed to be one of the sharpest and crispest results of all the beercan Minolta lenses AF. And for me, even if I agree on the fact that I find some results very, very crisp and sharp, I am deceived by the results at 135 wide open. Once you pass the f4, so you put f4.5 already, it's going to be sharp. That is true. So that's curious. I don't know. I think I have to investigate that, but I suppose that it's related to my copy. You know that all these things are second hand, so it's possible to encounter something that is not good. You know, so it's you and your luck when you go second hand. But on the plus side, you pay very less. So this thing I don't know. This thing is still in the north of the prices for this thing. This thing, the 35-105. Okay, now you can buy this for, I don't know, 40 or 50 bucks tops. The beercan, the 70-110 f4. I suppose that now we can try to find that for less than $100. And this one, the 135 2.8, I think this one is keeping a price in the upper prices, because the thing is that it's so compact that it's we barely think that it's a 135. It's a tele lens, and we barely see that with the size and the weight. So we are winning. I will investigate what are the available counterparts for E-mount system, but I have already seen that an equivalent of this doesn't have AF. As a matter of fact, doesn't have autofocus on the E-mount. You have to be using manual focus. So the question is, would it be a deal breaker for you not to have the autofocus or not? That's the question. And this one, yeah, the 100 macro is keeping a price that is pretty high, in fact, because especially if you buy it with the Sony, because there is a Sony version that is absolutely exactly the same than the Minolta, but the price is getting very, very high. Could be like 400 euros. So that's not that has to be taken into account, because you don't want to pay. You know, I have said it already. You don't want to pay the price of an E-mount lens for an A-mount lens. It doesn't make any sense. But obviously, if you see that the price of the A-mount lens is so low compared to the E-mount equivalent, you have to jump on this occasion, and this you have to grab it, at least to try to be sure that you like it. And once you know that you like the focal length, and you know that you like the rendering, and you know that you like the properties and so on of the lens, you know that you can go for the E-mount version. For me, I don't intend for the month to go E-mount. I will try to rent an A7Rm4 that is 61 megapixels, so 50% more than my current 42 megapixel sensor, and I will see how they cope with this resolution. I have no doubt that the three of these, the beercan 70-210, the 135 2.8, and the 100 macro 2.8, they will have no problem with the 61 megapixel. I have doubts concerning the 35-105 and the 28-135. Thank you very much, guys, and see you soon for the next episode.